Chapter 4, Key Issue 3, Content Objective. Why is access to folk and pop culture unequal? Your ICANN statements. 1. Describe the origin, diffusion, and distribution of TV around the world. 2. Compare the diffusion of internet and social media with diffusion of TV. Notice this ICANN statement will cover the second half of Key Issue 1 and then also lead into Key Issue 3. 3. Summarize how areas of folk culture will resist the diffusion of pop culture. 4. Explain the main forms of expansion diffusion associated with popular culture. 5. Summarize the challenges some countries face in accessing electronic communication. 6. Explain the bias in media communication in the 21st century. The principal obstacle for diffusion of pop culture is access to electronic media, social media, so unequal access to social media. And when we talk about electronic media, there are two, the popular culture is TV for two reasons. However, it's rapidly declining in more developed regions due to internet and social media. But watching TV is the most popular leisure activity in the world. In some areas, it's starting to decline. TV is the most important mechanism for diffusing pop culture around the world. We look at human activity. We see that watching TV is more than half of the pie, but a growing percentage is and they don't show it on here, but the growing percentage would be in socializing on social media and internet. All right, electronic diffusion. In the mid-20th century is the TV. There were multiple hearths. The hearths would have been in the United Kingdom, France, Japan, Soviet Union, and the U.S. However, in the 20th century, U.S. Dominated because it held the majority of the world's shares of TVs in the mid-20th, or in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. We can see television. And I wish we had 2017. I wish we had a map. But we can see the diffusion, how long it takes. It takes about 50 years to diffuse globally. With the internet in the late 20th century, we have usage in the U.S. But in 2000 to 2017, more than 75% of the population has internet capabilities or usage. The shares of internet have declined in the U.S., where the growth has been seen in China. When we look at the internet, we can see the internet diffuses much faster than that of television. In a short span of, and if we had 2017, we'd see a short span. It covers all the world, with least internet found in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, the two least developed countries or regions. All right, take a look at this chart. The number of internet users in the U.S. continues to increase, but the global share of internet users within the United States continues to decrease. As we can see with the density, the number of U.S. internet users has increased, but diffusion internet per 1,000 again has increased, but the global diffusion U.S. shares of internet users has declined significantly. All right, go ahead and again use this moment to reflect and put these in your notes on what was just covered. All right, let's take a look at social media. In the 21st century, social media is dominant, same as television, same as the internet, but it's much faster because now social media is found in less developed regions or developing countries. Most of those competing social networks quickly supplanted by Facebook, especially in Latin America, notably absent was China, because China's government limits the availability of Facebook. But we see the rapid diffusion of Facebook and then Twitter even faster. When we look at Twitter, we see the importance of memes. We also see the importance of trolling, which is also spread social media content faster. Again, we can look at Facebook users and how quickly it diffuses, much faster than internet. And then tweets. All right, when we look at social media and the global interconnectivity, the number of social media users in the U.S. continues to increase, but the global share of American social media users shows that there is a steady decline within each of the social media platforms. As we can see from Facebook, the global share was 34% in 2009 and now only 11%. And then we can also see with Twitter, where the global shares were in 2009 51 and now they're down to 23. However, Instagram, a relatively, it's as new as Twitter, has shown an increase in world shares from 2009. Looking at these pie charts, it tells us how Twitter and Instagram are mainly used within the United States. However, it's popular in other regions such as Japan. Other is not disclosed information. And then that's as already mentioned, China bans a lot of social media. They have their own competing social media networks such as Weibo or Qzone. It's distinctive of Chinese social media values, as well as TikTok, all Chinese-owned social media platforms that rival Western social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. All right, TikTok, you guys all know TikTok. Again, memes is one way of spreading popular culture today. It's contagious diffusion because usually it's spread by friend to friend. However, it's also hierarchical because a lot of celebrities will use memes. Another example I already mentioned is trolling, and then the use of troll. And I don't have a slide for it, unfortunately, but we have clickbait and YouTubers, which students last year told me about. But let's just talk about trolling, because in this day and age in the 21st century, fake news is generated on social media. You hear alternative facts. They can be used, and again, this is hierarchical diffusion because it starts from the current administration. And then there's also trolling, which happens where you have deliberate, inflammatory, off-topic messages in social media to provoke quarrels or otherwise agitate people, which again spreads fast through contagious diffusion. The external threats, as some countries see, but we can see it changing with the internet platforms growing in China and competing with the West. But TV was dominated by Japan, UK, and the United States, as we already learned in the 1900s, 1950s. Most of it was dominated by American values on TV. The values were upward social mobility, freedom for women, glorification of youth, stylized violence, all threatening the folk culture of these regions. And then globalization of pop culture. Globalization of pop culture generates counter reactions, and that would be like censorship in China. When we look at folk and pop culture, we can see clear lines in how it diffuses. When we look at urban areas, that's where we see more affluency. With affluency, you're going to have more viewers. You're going to have more people streaming. You're going to have advanced technology and communication. And you're also going to see a variety in shows. In rural areas, you're going to see lower affluency, less income, so people will watch live TV. There's going to be limited technology and communication in some areas lacking Wi-Fi. And they like shows that are more homogeneous to rural areas. Cultural divergence is when you have pop culture rapidly diffuses to different or persists to different preferences at different scales. Examples can be found in difference between urban and rural residents. So we see that divergence with the examples in the last slide. And then rural economies, again, is the main reason. It's agrarian, focusing on agriculture, secondary manufacturing, and they're more traditional, whereas urban space is more wealth, and they have diverse ethnic groups, and they're more progressive. Or as some might say, and you hear in the media with conservatives and liberals. Again, liberals would be a synonym with conservatives. We see more liberals in urban areas, more conservatives in rural areas. And again, there's that cultural divergence that we see. All right, challenges to accessing electronic media. The news media in developing countries is largely controlled by private commercial stations. In developing countries, it's controlled by government. And then the areas where we see control by government, they'll criticize the freedom of press of the United States. The lowest media is found in areas where they have a communist government like China or Syria that has political corruption or political instability. Iran that has it's a secular state, so it's the Shia religion is dominated in Iran, and then you have Ethiopia. Social media, it's limited access or limiting access to TV, so satellite dishes are limited. They government censor, so they censor political content, censor social content, they censor conflict and security, and they also have censored IP addresses, emails, hosting sites, internet searches. And we can look at the internet freedom around the world, and we can see a sharp divide between East and West. And we can also see a divide that follows core, more DTM stage 4 countries. They're going to have more freedoms of press. And then again, where there's not freedom of press, it's going to be more autocratic governments, less freedom for people. Cyber attacks are common with social media. You have malware, which is designed to cause harm on the internet. Ransomware encrypts files. And cyber espionage is when countries can deploy a virus to observe and destroy usually confidential information in computer systems like government agencies or large corporations. Americans are the most common victim of cyber attacks. The United States is most often the country of origin of cyber attacks as well. So not only do they experience the most cyber attacks, but also cyber attacks originate, as we already mentioned, through malware and trolling and alternative facts and social media. We see these cyber attacks originate in the United States. You did put it on here, sorry. Okay, that's what I was referring to earlier. All right, here are your review questions from these notes for Chapter 4, Key Issue 3. Make sure to review notes.